Hey everyone, Shelly with Tastin Ladies. This video is a little bit different. Kim is not with me today, but I had a few people ask me if I would show you how I make my famous apple pie. They said, well, you know, it's still tasting. You're tasting something. So I thought about it, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you. My apple pie is really easy. I'm actually making 2 for Thanksgiving, and I'm starting now. I've already cut up apples for 1. What you want to do is Granny Smith, at least that's what I do. I get Granny Smith. If you're going to get small, medium, you want about 10 apples. If you're going to get large, you only need about 6 to 8, depending on how large they are. All right, so I'm doing 10 apples because I like lots of filling. Really simple. I always start just cutting them all in half so that they're already in half. I'm not peeling them yet. I'm not coring them. If you have an apple peeler and you're comfortable with it, by all means use it. I've tried it. I've just been doing this pie for so long, it's just easier for me to do it this way. And almost there. Now, as far as pie crust go, you can make your own pie crust. Just any recipe you can find for an ordinary pie crust. Nothing fancy. It's really quite easy. All right, so now that I've got them all halved, I'm gonna half them. I'm gonna cut them into quarters. Just easy peasy, cutting them down. Coring them. And peeling them. You want them thin slices. You don't want real thick. Well, maybe you do want thick. That's up to you. That's a personal choice. I like the thin. I use a lot of the apples and I do them thin and I just get more apples out of it. This pie, I've been making this pie, oh God, let's see, since I was 22 and I'm now 54. So you can do the math. I've been doing this pie for a long time. I've tweaked it. I've done all kinds of things to make it famous. It is my famous apple pie. I've had people tell me I can't come over unless I'm bringing my apple pie. And like I said, I use Granny Smith. I like the tart ones because what we're going to do to make the pie filling, my pie filling, it ends up calming the tartness down, but you don't get it too tart, you don't get it too sweet. It's just absolutely perfect. But again, I'm just gonna core them, peel them, slice them, throw them into a big old bowl. That one I didn't core very good, so I'll probably go back, remove that, because we don't want it. Nobody wants to taste that hardness in the middle. It's quite gross. Be careful when you're doing it. You do not want to cut yourself. However, you could tell people, you know, you made it with blood and sweat, but nobody really wants that. Some people might, but most people don't. All right. So you're going to do this with all the apples. Get them all sliced, cored, peeled, thrown into the bowl. All right, got my last apple. All right, so like I said, I use Granny Smith. You don't want a sweet apple. Now, there are some spicy apples. I have used, I want to say it's Fuji apple. can't remember, it was a long time ago. It's a spice. It's a spicy apple. And I used that, and that gave it a whole different flavor, and it was really good. But my go-to is always the Granny Smith. And you're going to finish it up. You're going to have everything in the bowl. You can get all your ingredients ahead of time into bowls. I don't, because that just means more dishes for me to wash. And I don't like washing dishes. So I'm going to do it all together at the same time, you know, at the end in one bowl, instead of a bunch of little bowls with all the ingredients. And I know everybody always does little ingredients in the bowls to show you, but I'm actually going to just measure it out and throw it into my bowl. So my last apple here that I'm going to core and peel and slice. And try not to cut myself or stab myself with the knife, because it does not feel good. Alright, then of course, always clean up your mess, because it's a big mess and there's a lot of it, especially when you're making multiple pies. And I'm making multiple pies. We got the pie from my house, and then we got the pie from my sister-in-law's house, because we're doing, you know, we have multiple families, so we have to do 2 different houses. I'm going to be making my homemade cranberry sauce and my homemade sweet potatoes. Maybe I'll do that too. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see though. Alright, so I got my new bowl. I've got my measuring cups and spoons, and I've got my flour, sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and salt. Alright, so we've got 1 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm gonna get rid of all the clumps. So I would use my big measuring cup that has all the different sizes, except it's so old, they're all worn out and I can't read it. So I'm using these. 1 1/4 cup sugar. So it still has some clumps. I like to get rid of them. That's what I like to do. We're going to do the 1/2 cup of flour. Half a cup of flour. Get this mess out of the way. Gonna do a full teaspoon of cinnamon. That's my full teaspoon. Not tablespoon, but teaspoon. I like to do a little heaping and a little bit more because I love cinnamon, and cinnamon is so good for you for many different reasons. All right, cinnamon, what am I doing next? I'm doing my nutmeg. I'm doing my nutmeg, which is 1/2 a teaspoon of nutmeg. And I like nutmeg, so it's a heaping. All right, so 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And yes, I use the pink Himalayan. It doesn't really matter. The salt, I do not do heaping. I do exactly the amount. All right, let me get this stuff out of the way. And so I got my sugar, my flour, my cinnamon, my nutmeg, and my salt. Now, is it necessary? No. But I mix it all up really good prior to adding it to my apples. Again, try to get rid of the clumps. And this is, you know, anything you're making, especially when it's baking, mixing the ingredients together before adding other stuff like all your dry, it just makes things a lot better. So, all right, my cinnamon and my nutmeg is all mixed up, as you can see. I'm gonna take my apples and I'm gonna pour about 1/2 of it in. And I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. Because right now, you know, it's all on the top. Okay. Then I add the rest. Get it good. Mix it well. Try to coat as much as possible. Get it from the bottom because it does drop to the bottom. Now, the trick is, you know, you might do this and then get your pie dish ready with your pie crust. Sorry, I was having a brain fart there. With your pie crust, and then pour it in. It's not going to be very flavorful when you do that. I have my own little secret, which I'm not going to share, but I'm going to give you guys a little tip with this. All right, so as you can see, this is what it looks like. Not very appetizing. The flavors haven't soaked into the apple. So what you want to do is you want to let this sit. You're going to cover it. You're going to refrigerate it. However long you feel is the right amount of time. I'm not going to tell you how long I do it. Because everybody has their own. And it's going to be one of those things of you're going to play with it and determine what your time is. I let mine sit quite a while. But, you know, one of those things. Cover it, refrigerate it. And then if you're making homemade pie crust, make your homemade pie crust. Do other things that you need to do. Prepare the rest of your meals. Let it sit. Sit for a couple of hours. However long you feel you need to let it sit. Until you can look at it and know that it has soaked in. All those spices have soaked into the apple. That gets rid of the super tart. And it doesn't give you that super, super sweet. It's a perfect combination. Which is why my apple pie is famous. But, like I said, my little secret, I can't give it away because it is my little secret and then everyone will know it. So I'm not going to tell you how long I actually let this sit and refrigerate. I'm going to go ahead and do the next batch that I've got. And then once this is sat and it's all ready, I will show you the rest of it. I am not making homemade pie crust this time. I'm not. I don't have the time. My sister's gonna be out of town, so I'm doing the whole dinner myself. And I'm working all the way through till Wednesday, and I've got a lot to cook, and I have one oven. So I'm store-bought crust. But what you want to do is you want the pie crust to sit out and be at room temperature before you use them. I don't have anything for you guys. No, I do not. My dogs are talking because I'm in the kitchen. They think it's going to be dinner time. All right, so like I said, the pie crust, if you're buying them, they come refrigerated. You want to keep them refrigerated until it's time to use them. I take them out and let them sit all day long to get them room temperature. When they're cold, they don't stretch easy. They break. It's a pain in the butt. So let them sit out. I also make sure that I have some butter that is softened. I use real butter and I use sticks of butter. I let those sit out too. Everything gets to be room temperature. Sitting the butter out, it's not going to melt on your counter unless it's sitting in the sun or next to a stove or oven that's on. But it will soften, and you want the soft butter. So those are important little tidbits for when we actually start filling the pie and doing the rest. So, see you in a minute. All right, so preheating the oven, 425. I let my apple filling sit for as long as I wanted. I've got my baking dish, my pie dish. I like to use the deep dish. I'm making 2 pies, like I said. Apparently, I have left my other deep dish at somebody's house. I have a feeling I know whose. So I'm going to use this one that's not so deep. But that's okay. Now, like I said, I'm using already made pie crust. There's Pillsbury, there's the generic brand, there's whatever you like. To me, they all taste the same. They do come in 2s, and I've let it sit at room temperature. I've also got my butter that I've let sit at room temperature. And we're gonna open this up. Sorry, I got a dog over there babysitting a dog, and the dog is getting into stuff, and I want to make sure that he doesn't pee on anything. All right, so you're gonna be careful when you're rolling this out. You do not want to tear it. What I like to do is just, if you ever worked in a pizza parlor, then you know about the stretching of the dough. I don't want to stretch it too thin, but I want to stretch it a little bit because it's not that big. You're going to place it into the pie dish. I like to kind of put it around the edges a little to help hold it out, because you're going to press it down, but you want enough pie crust on the outside because you got to connect the top layer. Now, some people like to get fancy with the I don't know what it's called, the crisscrossy on the top. I'm not doing that. I like to do just my regular plain old on the top with my slits. All right, so now I've got my apple pie crust and plate ready. Take a spoon, and I'm gonna mix this really, really good. There's a lot of liquid in it now. I'll make sure that everything is just coated. I'll show you this in just a second. So this is what my apples look like. They are really, really good too if you just taste one. I love my apple pie. Usually I don't like the food that I make because I spent so much time making it and I don't like to eat it. But my apple pie, oh, I will sit and eat a whole one if you give me the opportunity. All right, so instead of just dumping it all, because there's a lot of juice and a lot of liquid, I like to take and spoon out the apples, kind of spread it around. And I don't want to pour all that juice on it yet, or in it, you know, just dumping it, because I want to spread that juice all over. And it's just, that's the way I like to do it. Doesn't make any, I don't think it makes any difference. I just like to make sure that all the juice isn't sitting in one spot and it's just kind of spread, because there's a lot of juice. Got a couple more apples in there. And make sure you spread it out so that it is all even. You want it on the outside, you want it on the, just spread it good. And I'm going to take my juice and I'm just going to spread it everywhere. Oops, I'm dripping. All right, so I got my apple pie, as you can see right here. Now I'm going to take the top. I'm going to open it up. I'm not going to do anything with it quite yet because I do need to use some butter. I'm going to be using this stick of butter for some other things as well. And I'm just going to do some small slices. I'm going to spread it out. Ugh, this is like not working with me. That's okay. use about 5 pieces. And just kind of put it everywhere. I don't want to lean it too much because of the juice. Now, for my top layer. Come on, baby. Now, one thing you want to do before you start up your oven is I have always, and I learned from experience, I've always put aluminum foil down on the bottom, whether you have a gas stove or electric, because they're going to bubble and it's going to make a mess. You can also use a pan like a cookie sheet and put it on top of the cookie sheet. I'm not gonna have the room because I'm doing 2 pies. All right, you wanna put it right on top. You wanna take the top and you wanna fold it over the bottom layer. You're gonna do that all the way around. And there might be some spots that are a little bit, well, like that spot right there wasn't as, it wasn't as much on the bottom part as other areas, and it happens. But you're gonna fold all this, you're gonna get it going. It's not gonna be real pretty right now, the edges. We're gonna make the edges prettier. But you wanna pinch them. You want the dough to stick to each other. And as you're doing it, you'll understand if you've never done it before. All right, I'm almost back where I started. All right, now I'm just gonna kind of press so it sits down and the rest of it sticks up. And then once I have that all done, then I'm gonna take my fingers and I'm gonna kind of just like this and squish it and go around. Getting there, almost done. I'm just doing the pinching, going around. Ooh, it's bubbling over. All right, I got juice on my fingers. Some people like juicy fingers. It's okay. All right, so we got the top. Okay, now once you've got that, you're gonna make some slits. I do 4 slits on each side. Close to where the butter is, but just off to the side of it. And then of course, you're going to cut out a centerpiece. Now, a lot of people use egg whites to brush the top. I don't. I take butter. So if it's not room temperature, it's not going to spread easy, and you want it to spread. And it's not a lot. You want to get it close to the edges, kind of all around. Because you want your pie to be golden and flaky. All right, now am I done? No, I'm not. I'm gonna get a little bit of the cinnamon. Come on, cinnamon. I don't want a lot, just a little bit. And then I also want a little bit of sugar. So all I'm gonna do is take a little bit of sugar, sprinkle it. And the final topping. You want to cut enough aluminum foil to be able to wrap around the edges. And this is a real pain in the butt. It really is. You're going to bake it with, you might have at home the pie aluminum or metal, whatever it's made out of, the pie crust covers. I have them. I've never used them. I like to use what I know, and I know that it works. And I want to say I use about 3 of these. You're going to overlap them because you want to make sure that the crust is completely covered. Not the crust, the edges of the crust. I just laid that in my butter. Good Lord. And my oven is ready. I'm going to cover. Cover your edges. You're gonna put it in the oven for about 50 minutes with that on. Once the buzzer goes off, you're gonna take the edges off. You're gonna cook it for another 10 minutes. That's it. You don't want the edges burnt. This protects the edges from becoming burnt and too hard. They're still gonna be hard like any normal pie, but you don't want it too much. And this one is ready to go. Okay, there they are. My crust collapsed a little bit, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's still gonna taste good. See the crust? It is not too brown. It's perfect.